Are you paying a ton in shipping to send out products, samples, and whatever else? The fees really add up, but lucky for you, we now have a partner that gets you access to the discounted shipping rates that are usually only available to those big companies. I worked with them for my last beverage brand, and I can tell you they definitely got us savings. Whether you're sending overnight samples, fulfilling e-commerce orders, or even a 40-foot ocean container, our partner, Enterprise Purchasing Group, or EPG, has got you covered. There are a bunch of free benefits you can get by signing up with them. You can get up to an 86% discount on small parcel shipments from UPS, DHL Express, UPS, and more. You get really competitive LTL and FTL rates through UPS. You get discounted spot and fixed ocean rates through Flexport and Maersk. You get exclusive air freights, and you also get preferential terms with supply chain financing. All you need to do is reach out to Francis Agas. His email is francis, Francis, at enterprisepurchasing.com. Mention the Startup CPG discount and take advantage of those savings. Good luck, everybody, and happy shipping.
To be honest, we all in the DSD world kind of have the same angle and what are same goals, right? So making friends in the DSD world is totally cool with me. I mean, collaborating is so fun, getting to work with other brands. I've got friends over at Rainforest, and friends at LAD, at High Touch, and Allison, right? I mean, everyone's so cool, just great to work with, good people, and getting good people together is always not a bad idea. So that's why I like to be friends with other DSDs.
So if you're wanting to expand in a market, a DSD is a good way to go deep with your brand, build relationships in the region that you're launching or that you want to grow in, because those are the companies that are really in the stores every day, merchandising, maybe they're ordering. And each DSD is set up different. Some do full service, like Pint Size does ordering, merchandising, and even like inventory management in the store. So it's very involved, very high touch in the stores. Whereas like not so much from a broad line. So I think that's the only thing I would add is like DSDs can all be different, and it's really just about how deep do you want to go? Do you want to go deep in a certain channel, deep in a whole market? Answer those needs for you.
Hello, Startup CPG. You have lucked out because today you get to become friends with two of my favorite people, and not just in the DSD world. It's Allison from Pint Size Hawaii and Ahmed from Good Stuff. These are two super tastemaker DSDs, and that's direct store delivery for those of you not familiar. They've volunteered to come on the podcast and explain to us all about how does DSD work and how do two great DSDs like theirs actually work with their customers and the brands. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DSD Day. I am so excited to welcome two of my favorite DSDs to the pod. First, we've got Allison Taylor from one of the leading Hawaiian DSDs called Pint Size Hawaii. Allison is the Director of Business Development, and she's responsible for growing a diverse portfolio of brands. She has over a decade of experience, so she knows all about the challenges that come with market expansion, including building your brand awareness and strategic partnerships. Prior to Pint Size, Allison was an account manager at UNFI, and also she was at, for 5 years, Back to the Roots, which is an absolute innovator in the home garden category. It's led by some great friends of mine, Nikhil and Alex. But that's not all. We are also joined by the legendary Ahmed Chehade. When you ask who the best-in-class DSD is for NorCal, probably someone's going to say, do you know about Good Stuff Distributor? Then you're going to try to find a way to learn more about Ahmed and his team. So this is how you can do that. I've been to their facility in SF, actually, and it is truly beautiful. I am not exaggerating at all when I say I would actually eat a meal off the floor of their warehouse because it's so spotless. So without further ado, welcome both of you to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel. Awesome intro.
All right. So, Allison, you were the first person I got to agree to coming on to the podcast to do an episode for this DSD topic, which I've been desperate to do. And then you invited Ahmed. So I've been really lucky to actually work with both of you. But now I kind of wonder, because you know each other, like, do you know a lot of DSD people? Like, Allison, do you have a big DSD friend crew? You guys like show up and hang out at the trade shows?
Well, Ahmed was one of the first ones that I made. So I think because we are literally on an island, we don't like figuratively have to be on one. So part of the job is reaching out and making friends. So he was one of my first DSD friends. So that's why I was, he's got to come on the pod with me.
All right. Ahmed, what about you? Are you like Mr. DSD popular, or are you mainly focused on your own thing, or just friends with Allison?
Honestly, to be honest, we all in the DSD world kind of have the same angle and what our same goals, right? So making friends in the DSD world is totally cool with me. I mean, collaborating is so fun. Getting to work with other brands. I've got friends over at Rainforest, friends at LAD, at High Touch, and Allison, right? I mean, everyone's so cool, just great to work with, good people, and getting good people together is always not a bad idea. So that's why I like to be friends with other DSDs.
All right. Me too. I want to be friends with cool DSDs. So I thought a good way to start would be, I feel like the most common question that you guys probably get that I hear about DSDs is, what is a DSD? Because, I think when you're like launching a brand, you're not big enough for a DSD in most cases, or, your brand's not where it needs to be. And so maybe you get more familiar first with like, broadliners, UNFI, KE. And then, hopefully as you scale, then you start to hear about that and how that can unlock a lot of growth for your brand. So even like I haven't worked with DSDs so much. I've, was lucky to work with both of you guys. But okay, so my impression of a DSD or my take on it versus broadliners, you can get into them. They service a lot of accounts, right? So if you can open up one of their distribution centers, they might hit, lots of different accounts. A lot of them are going to be just kind of bigger chains. And they may be going to like, I don't know, the chain's main distribution center. They may be going to the individual stores. And mainly what they're doing is going and putting the product in the back, right? Like they're delivering the product into the back of the store. And, I think like, because maybe it's kind of like a mass way to do it. You can hit a lot of chains and then you can go national with those broadliners also and get into other regions of theirs. And, there's a lot of that that's streamlined because, you don't have to work with so many people and they can hit a lot of doors. And probably maybe the downside would be like that product still has to make its way from the back up to the front or wherever you're trying to get it merchandised. Right. And that can hopefully happen and it happens well. But, a lot of times it doesn't happen, which is probably the thing that creates the industry of merchandising, with our friends at Base Makers and Dirty Hands and, creates a big opportunity for them to then also help brands. So, my impression of DSDs is, okay, so like if you're lucky enough to work with a DSD, number one, you can unlock a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily be pulling from those broadliners. And that would be maybe like indies and they're small enough where they're not just working with them because they don't hit those same order volumes, or just probably a lot more people who just don't happen to work with them, and additional channels and convenience and a lot of like even food service, because a lot of food service can pull from DSDs. So that was kind of my impression. And then like, obviously you have to figure out how to work well with the DSD because it's different, right? You're going to have like, you want to motivate them. They're individuals on the floor going and, driving the truck and doing these things. And like, you want to be top of mind for them. Like they're almost an extended part of your team. So for me, that's like generally how I think about DSDs as like this massive lever to unlock growth in just, so many untapped for you channels and retailers. And you can work with ones in specific markets. And then obviously there's some like national ones. And you talked about some of them that can do other stuff. But like, people are always such big fans of, I would say, more specialized ones in specific regions. So what do you think? Maybe Allison, I'll come to you first. Like, what did I get some of the stuff right? Like, what are some things that I missed?
I was gonna say you nailed it. I think the difference, like even coming from UNFI, I think the broadline distributors are really about going broad, and then DSD is about kind of going deep. So if you're wanting to expand in a market, a DSD is a good way to go deep with your brand, build relationships in the region that you're launching or that you want to grow in, because those are the companies that are really in the stores every day, merchandising, maybe they're ordering. And each DSD is set up different. Some do full service, like Pint Size does ordering, merchandising, and even like inventory management in the store. So it's very involved, very high touch in the stores, whereas like not so much from a broad line. So I think that's the only thing I would add is like DSDs can all be different. And it's really just about how deep do you want to go? Do you want to go deep in a certain channel, deep in a whole market? And then that right DSD partner will, answer those needs for you.
Okay, Ahmed, what do you think? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit it right on the spot. DSDs, when it comes to the brand and brand development, it's really important that you have good DSD partners, and it's a collaborative effort from the DSD and the vendor and the retailer, because the relationships go deep, right? Like, we're a 30-plus-year-old company, so our relationships go deep with a lot of these accounts or these buyers. And, we have a good partner, we've got a good brand. Like Allison said, you go deep into the relationship. You get granular into getting the pricing up. You get the program set up. Everything goes A to Z. You get to check all the boxes, which is really cool. And I don't think you necessarily get that type of service, that hands-on service or customer service aspect, that personal touch with broadliners. You're definitely going to get that because I'm family owned. Everything I do, all the relationships that we set up, they're meaningful. Like we strive for it. So, you saw it when we were when you chatted with us. My team, our sales reps, like everyone knows everybody, and we work very, very tight together.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a cool experience. I got to come and meet your whole team, and then I obviously have the relationship with you, and then I'm talking to you about like, hey, this account of yours, we would love to get in there, and you give me the guy's number to text, and then I'm texting him and you and trying to figure out the pricing and stuff, and like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily happen with a broadliner where they're giving you the buyer's cell phone number to text. So yeah, a pretty deep relationship that we have with you and that you have with the customers, obviously, who have trusted you for a long time. So that makes sense. And then is there a difference between the kind of brands that would be right for a broadliner versus ones that could be a good fit for a DSD? Maybe Allison, since you've been at both UNFI and a DSD, you would have some perspective on that.
I think when I was at UNFI, I even noticed, the first time I've heard about Good Stuff was when they had shelf space in my schematic and I was like, who are these guys? They're crushing it, I think the difference would be is just really the type of the size the brand is. Like if they really need some extra care and support and guidance on how to grow in a certain market, a DSD is probably a better fit for you. But I think with just like the difference of brands, I think it's really what the brand's goals are and the type of support that they need. And then on the DSD point of view, we're looking to really, grow our portfolio in the categories that we plan and what we're missing. So if you're a top brand and you're not in our portfolio and the categories we carry, we're probably interested in you as well. So,
okay. And then, so for me, when I think of DSD, I think of the higher velocity items, beverage and and then maybe stuff that needs a little bit more care, like frozen. Ahmed, is that kind of right? Like, I don't think of like mayo. Like, probably like mayo is. I don't know. I wouldn't think of that as being on a with a DSD. Is that right, Ahmed? Or what kind of products are you typically looking for?
That's funny you say that because like I hate mayonnaise, so we just don't carry any mayonnaise products. but we do sell condiments. But with that said, going back to that original question, it's about your niche, the DSD's niche, and their customer service, their customer base. What type of business model do they have? Like, there's other DSDs in the Bay Area and Northern California. We all don't do the same thing, right? Like, we all have our own alley that we stay in, or we overlap. But essentially, when it comes to the brands, whether it's large or small, that's why Good Stuff kind of works in this niche, and we savvy our way to great relationships, because we're not just taking care of the big brands that have great revenue streams for Good Stuff, right? And it takes care of the vendor, the distributor, as well as the retailer, and then the customer gets a good product. Well, what we're also doing, we're sourcing local small brands too. Like Mama Teeves was at my office this morning doing a little sample tasting with my guys, and it's just the first time entering distribution. Well, that's also part of Good Stuff's kind of business model, is to help the smaller brands get into the distribution channel, so we can help emerging brands, succeed. And that's why we are where we are and the relationships that we've set up.
And so Ahmed, how does somebody make sure that they find the right person? Like in a market like SF, where you said they're okay, a handful of other people, and you each have your own role. How is a brand going to know how to find you, and that you would be the right person for them, and not one of those other ones? Is it about like, hey, these are like this? I want to get in this retailer, and they happen to work best with you guys, or is it more like, okay, they do the best with like kind of more natural products?
Yeah, I mean, it's a layer of like multiple things, right? Like as a brand's perspective, what's a brand need? Well, I'm a soda, right? I'm a conventional soda. Well, I'm not going to go sit in the natural distribution channel. I'm going to go find more of a convenient factor type of distribution channel, like a Pitco or something like that. But when it comes to natural and specialty, organic, natural, specialty, that's where Good Stuff survives. And that's where we live. And that's where we try to cater to with our customer base. But it depends on the brand. It depends on what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve, what kind of customers they're trying to work with. And that's essentially what I would say is figure out what DSDs do what's right and how do they do it, how long they've been doing it, and if it matches your brand's necessities and goals, then I think you find the right partner. But not every DSD is right for every brand, so that's the best way to put it.
Okay, so I think that's a really interesting one. And then Allison, I have basically the same question for you. And I can say that like when I was looking for a DSD in Hawaii, it went like this. I went and tried to sell into Foodland Hawaii, and the buyer at the time, Kenny, amazing guy, friend of mine, was like, "Yeah, I like this product. You're going to want a DSD. Like, I want you to have a DSD for this product to be treated right in the stores. It's going to be the best fit. So yeah, maybe go and find one of those and check back in with me." And then I went on a wild goose chase for a while because none of them would talk to me. Honestly, I'm like Googling, I don't know who they are. Like I'm Googling who are the DSDs there. I'm looking on their websites. I'm just calling them. They're like, oh yeah, I don't know, maybe call this other person. And I don't know, like what accounts do you already have? Oh, not a ton. Like, yeah, maybe not. And I think they are in pretty high demand. And then I don't know how it took me so long, but then eventually I found my way Pint Size and was able to connect with you. And then it was all roses from there. That was amazing. And then, of course, Kenny's like, yeah, I love them. That's great. Okay, let's, get this going. So, but okay, if you think about that process, really, like, I think maybe I just knew a little bit more about SF. It was easier for me to find Ahmed, and I just like knew more people who knew about him. And so he was like top of the list always for me. With you, it took me a while to figure that out. Is that how it usually goes? Or like, how are people usually finding Pint Size Hawaii?
Yeah, I think it's mainly with our customers, like with the what the recommendations from the buyer. So I don't know if the question was asked like, hey, what's your preferred DSD partner in Hawaii, or what ones do you use? But we work really closely with our customers just because we're so remote that we are really tight with their needs and what they're looking for. So I meet with buyers monthly or quarterly, depending on the category, and figuring out what they're looking for. And usually it comes up in conversation in those meetings of what brands they're looking for that they want to bring on in DSD. So we partner really closely with our customers based on like what they're looking for. And then also it goes both ways. I can also present to them, maybe something I think they're missing from walking the stores and things like that. So sometimes I'll pursue the brand, or the brand will pursue me through the buyer.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I'm honestly, I might have been too inexperienced to really ask that question very directly. But I think at the time he had tried to introduce me to some, but I don't know, maybe it just hadn't been a good fit. And then, of course, when I found my way to you, then he was very excited. It's like, yeah, that's perfect. But I think it's a really good point, and I think for brands of just knowing to ask that question, because not only, yeah, like you wouldn't know who the preferred one is unless you ask the buyer. And yeah, why wouldn't they tell you that if they want to work with you? Yeah, like, yeah. And then bonus points if they actually introduce you, because I can tell you makes a whole world of difference if I call them out of the yellow pages and say, like, oh no, but like, this retailer wants me, versus if I could even get the buyer to send you an email with me on copy being like, hey, could you get them set up? We like them. And then, man, it just really compounds from there, because then I can call up 7-Eleven Hawaii also and be like, great, so we're actually getting set up with a DSD, and now they'll take my call because they're like, oh, with Pint Size, like, yeah, okay, now we'll talk to you. Before, like, this was not a real thing. So it's like, man, you have to fight so hard to get like that initial thing set up. But once you're moving, then I don't know, you have the big advantage. Um, Okay, so I wonder actually, maybe this would be a good time for just everybody to get the overview of each of your operations, because we've kind of talked about it a little bit as we backed into the DSD topic, but maybe we could just take a few minutes. And Ahmed, maybe if you want to go first, of just really like, what is Good Stuff for everybody who doesn't have the pleasure of already knowing about it?
Yeah. No, thanks for asking. Good Stuff, family owned distribution company based out of San Francisco, California. We service natural, organic, specialty, and Mediterranean cuisine. That's our specialties there. We've been doing it for over 35 years now. We service all of the Greater Bay Area, so you can talk about all of San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, Sonoma, Napa, Santa Cruz, Sacramento, big region. So we're about 100-mile radius from San Francisco. We run refrigerated trucks, we run frozen, we run refrigerated and dry products. We have two portions of our business. One portion is the retail grocery, where we service from small to large chain grocers. And we have another portion of our business where it's more food service, meaning we service restaurants and we service cafes and hotels and catering companies with bulk ingredients within grain, spices, beans, dairy, etc. So, in a nutshell, Good Stuff is a regional distributor. Done it for a long time. We strive for relationship building, and we're really happy with what we've built and continue building here on out.
Amazing. So, like grocery chains, both bigger chains as well as independents, convenience. Also, I know you guys do some amazing high-end convenience stores, even that anybody would want to get into, and then alternate channels, including food service and probably a bunch of other stuff as well that probably people wouldn't know how to get in touch with those guys until they start working with you. So
Yeah.
I guess my next question would be like, how much of that distribution are people coming in with when they get to start working with you versus how much do you open up for them because you start working with them?
Well, it's a collaborative effort. I mean, like, right. I mean, when we onboard a new brand, we have to go and kind of look at all the check boxes. Okay, are you currently doing distribution? Do you want it to go through Unify, or do you want it to be pulled through Good Stuff? Like, what's the goal there? And then we talk about the account base. We say, hey, we got these chains. Let's make sure we keep these as leads priorities. We've got these kind of single location, independent health food stores. We got these C stores, these liquor stores and convenience stores that we cater to. And then we've got some fun profile accounts like the Giants and the A's. And, you've got all sorts of fun stuff within the community here. And if the brand does a good job in communicating and brand awareness is continued to be developed, you get those opportunities to get into those accounts. And we talk through, we'll go through the account list and say, hey, where do you want to be? We'll communicate with my reps. They have their account list. They go and do their selling and pitching, and I do my selling as well. So it's all fun collaborative effort and going through the account list together and seeing exactly who we cater to, because you'll look through the list and be like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know I was in there at just some random moment in time. And you look through our depletions and you're like, oh, that's cool. I love to see that.
Okay, perfect. And so, and what is your...
Just to add, we do a ton of airport business too. So like that's also a huge reason why a lot of brands like to work with us too, just because of the brand awareness they get from being at the airport. We've been doing it for a long time, so it's good business for sure.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, cool. And Ahmed, what is your role at Good Stuff? What is all the stuff that you do there? What do you spend all day on?
Yeah, so I'm the chief operating officer. I run the business with my brother Malik. He's my right hand man. I mean, he is a go getter. I love all the efforts he does. But for me personally, I mean, I oversee the operations. My brother and I wear many hats. So for me, from buying, setting up the vendor relationship, setting up the pricing, the economics, to get the pricing onto the shelf. We run the promotional programs, marketing programs, to sales execution, fleet management, you're running the staff, HR, I do a lot of stuff. But the main role that takes majority of my time is going to be the vendor relationships and the sales with my sales team. So I oversee my sales team as well.
Okay, amazing. And then, Allison, do you mind giving the same overview for Pint Size Hawaii and what your overall role is there?
Sure. Yeah, Pint Size has been a DSD in the Hawaiian Islands for about over 40 years now. So, and that's the whole state. So when we're talking all major islands, we have warehouses on Oahu, which is like the major biggest island, and then the other neighboring islands, Kauai, Maui, and then we have a warehouse in Hilo on the Big Island. So what's unique about us is we have the warehouses on all the islands, and then our own fleets, so our own trucking, our own warehousing. So we don't have any third party trucking or warehousing. And then we focus on all temp states too. So traditionally, the company comes from Nestle roots, mainly like dryers, Haagen-Dazs. So anywhere you can think of a drumstick, it's probably that's where we service. So all channels, all temp states. And as the company has gotten older, we have a lot of we're expanding our natural portfolio as well. So we have more conventional routes, but are expanding in natural. And then similar structure. I mean, we have a sales team that operates on all the islands as well. We have account managers, we have order takers, we have merchandisers, and then our drivers also can like help with some of that as well if it's like a smaller route. So we have a large team, hands-on out on the islands, and then in our main customer base, we service, I guess the largest tiered customers would be grocery, supermarket, so Safeway, Foodland, and Times are the largest grocery chains. And then our C-store is another large channel for us. So we have a chain there in Hawaii called ABC. It's kind of like a New York City bodega in Waikiki. They have everything you can think of in their stores for all the tourists. So we service their accounts. They're one of our larger accounts, as well as 7-Eleven, and then other local C-store chains. And then we also do food service too. So that food service is super broad. It can be like hotels, it can be coffee shops, it can be smoothie shops. So that's or even hospitals, and even anything you can think of beyond grocery, retail, and C-store. So that's our channel base, what we carry, and kind of how we operate.
We'll be right back. Hola, amigos. About 4 years ago, I got a message from a designer in Colombia who said she'd like to work with Startup CPG to build her reputation in the US. I couldn't believe how affordable her pricing was, and the quality looked top-notch. I started work with them for Startup CPG, and then a bunch of my other CPG projects as well. Fast forward to today, they are the most beloved agency in our Startup CPG community. They've got dozens of happy customers like Prickly and so many more. I recommend them to absolutely anybody who will listen, because the combo of top-notch quality and very reasonable pricing is exactly what you want as a startup brand. You can hire them for branding, packaging, your website, or they actually have an awesome startup package that will do all three. If you want to learn more, email them at startupcpg@wagondesignstudio.com or check the show notes. You could also post on our Slack for feedback and just be overwhelmed by how many people want to sing their praises. Gracias, Wagon! And now, back to the show. Yeah, really interesting to hear. And I think, Hawaii is such a unique market. And I think so desirable for so many brands to get into, just because, I think I remember reading some studies about how people are really likely to discover products, especially when they're on vacation. And how those kind of products stick with them then when they come back. So it's such a cool place. Both for the locals there to have the product available to them, and so many brands who are like aspirational, outdoor lifestyle. Hawaii is so beautiful, but also the chance to just reach so many high value people because of all the tourism in Hawaii as well. But it's not without its challenges, right? The most obvious one of actually just kind of getting the product there, which from mainland can be a little challenging, right? I think if you go through UNFI, it's more or less the same model, but they're shipping stuff out there, and then probably you're just going to see it reflected at the price on shelf at some point, with a nice little increase. Sorry to the locals, but definitely there are some price discrepancies with mainland versus Hawaii. But then, on the brand side, we have to figure out, if we're going to work with a DSD, we've got to figure out the best way to get the product to you as well. So I remember doing that exercise, like figuring out, I think I asking you like, okay, who's the best freight forwarder, and looking around a little bit and figuring out how we could make that work. But hopefully everybody gets through that process. So that sounds like a pretty big differentiator then. So you have really good coverage all over the island. You've got your own warehouses. And now the name Pint Size makes sense to me, I guess, knowing the Nestle roots. I guess that I probably should have connected that before. Um, so, one thing I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned all the different kind of services that you guys do, from like, taking orders, and like really what actually happens when the DSD rep shows up at the store? Like, what are all the things that they're doing? Like, okay, so if it's like a new account versus if it's an account they're servicing, like they drive up there, they've got an order, they're going in, they're talking to the manager, they're figuring out how much, like what kind of an order they want to place. They're actually placing it. Probably they already have it on the truck, or like, what's the like order of operations there that results in you maybe getting a new account? Like, who's the person that's actually doing that? Is it the same person that's delivering it, or like what are they doing when they go to the store?
Do you want me to take that first?
Yeah, why don't yeah, maybe Allison, if you want to start with that one.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have that structure that I mentioned. So we have the key account managers who pretty have the touch point on the buyer, like or on the chain. They're more involved like the high level operations with the store managers. So they oversee the chain accounts, and then we have order takers, which pretty much follow the delivery schedule. So as products get delivered, our order takers come and they just kind of backfill orders. They just are in the stores every week, just checking on the shelves. So they're doing all the ordering for our customers. So it's a huge plus for the customer because they don't have to worry about any of our products. They know that we are taking care of it. And then we also have merchandisers that follow like our truck route and make sure the shelf, anything that is dropped off on the pallet, they're the ones filling the shelves and executing on the schematic. So they're the ones that's what the traffic looks like in the store once we drop off an order.
So those are all separate people. You've got the key account team, like making the headquarter calls, calling the stores, getting stuff in. And then you've got obviously the person doing the truck who's delivering the product. But separate from that, you have someone different doing the order taking. So they're in the stores without product, but just checking and, making sure that you're ordering the right amount to be delivered. And then lastly, the merchandiser. So really four different key people. Is that, Ahmed, is that similar for you, or do you have a different setup?
No, I admire Allison's setup. It's very complex. It takes a lot of time and management. And with Good Stuff, it's a bit different. We have sales reps who have specific confront territories that they oversee with specific chain accounts, small accounts. They've got a book of business that they oversee. And they go and they talk to the buyers, they talk to the owners, they go in there, they check the shelves, they check back stock. They submit orders for whether that's the next day or the following day's deliveries. They try to set up displays or whatever it is. If there's a shipper program, they'll communicate. They'll help merchandise, but that's not their main responsibility. It's more relationship building, inventory management at the store level, upselling new items, promotional programs to be passed on, and then put onto the shelf at the right price tag. Making sure the product's nice and pretty on the shelf, giving it some TLC, shelf talkers, etc. But and then from us, it's like orders are placed, orders prepared at our facility. Next day, it's being delivered, and that's kind of the rotating process for us.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe then some of those roles are consolidated into one person who's doing a lot of them, and like they're just kind of more the go-to, but then still the delivery of the product is going to be separate.
Correct. Yeah, the delivery gets scheduled, so the buyer knows, that the receiving team knows when their orders are being received and delivered, whereas my team's going off and doing all the relationship building.
And then, so how does it work? Let's say you have like a small chain in the SF area with, 5 locations, maybe like a Rainbow or Gus's or something. Who's the person that would then be trying to get one of your brands into all the stores? Is it like you just have one of those persons kind of assigned to it? Or because I know Allison said they have kind of more of a key account team that would do that stuff, but how would that work for you guys?
Yeah, it's a mixture. Some of my reps will oversee a large chain, like Nugget, for example. My guy Diego does a great job. He communicates with the team, staff, presents new items. And some chains I handle myself. and so on. So it just depends on the account, but majority of the chains will funnel through me, and some of the smaller independents will funnel through my team or myself. So it's a collaborative effort at the same time.
Got it. And I mean, is there anything about like we talked a little bit about the uniqueness of Hawaii. Is there anything else about like SF, NorCal that you think would make it really different from other parts of the country that people might be familiar with?
Yeah, the Bay Area and NorCal is really filled with independence. It's covered with a healthy amount of great, long-standing independent business, and I would say consumers are very educated, right? Like they're very intrigued on trying new products and trying new things, and love samplings and demos and all that hands-on engagement with the consumers. But in terms of how it differentiates from maybe other places, I would just say like you've got a great diverse melting pot of people in the Bay Area, and you're going to try all sorts of stuff from very cultural products to very standard convenient lines as well. I mean, you're going to get a lot of engagement just on a brand and consumer level with Northern California.
That makes sense to me. It vibes with my experience there. I had never almost been to SF before, but then moved out there when I worked for Just Egg. I was working in the Mission. So we basically had kind of like a tech/food office in the middle of the Mission. And I would go often for lunch to Gus's, which is a really strong independent chain there. And there would be brand sampling. Always, when there's cheese, you load up. When they're sampling the cheese, the good stuff. And I would always try new things. I remember that was the first place I ever dared to try kombucha as like, an East Coast boy. I'm like, let me see what's going on with this. I did not love it. I'll just be honest. The first time I had it, it was weird for me. But then, some of my other like tech kind of food coworkers would then go to the ethnic grocery store and get like a banh mi sandwich. And that was really cool too. I'd go with them sometimes. So a lot of like well-educated, interesting, kind of cultured people trying a lot of different stuff in just kind of proximities around where they work. And I would say probably at that point, not a lot of people were, walking over to the Whole Foods to get lunch, but rather just trying a lot of the, and people loved Rainbow Grocery. I mean, I worked at a vegan company, so that makes more sense. But yeah, there were some people who would go over there every day for lunch. So it makes sense in the context that you just gave.
Yeah, customers are loyal too. I mean, like they'll be shopping at Rainbow like their entire life. It's crazy. Like people love and have brand loyalty to the community markets that they shop at. Like I'll give a shout out to Star Berkeley. It's like a small little market, but everyone knows that place if you go to UC Berkeley like I did, and you just shop there just because that was the spot. You get your sandwiches and you get your snacks and all that stuff because that was a spot. That's a community area in Berkeley that you just go to all the time.
All right. That makes sense. Allison, any other dynamics about the Hawaii market that people should know about?
I would say, I think what's unique about Hawaii too is like if you put in the effort and you put in the commitment to really grow it and maybe spend some time, meet some people in Hawaii, like come out, meet the buyers, come out, meet the team. If you're able to even spend like a few days up to a week in Hawaii, I mean, rough place to visit, but if you commit to come out and meet the environment, meet people, and understand the market a little bit because it is unique, it's also like a cultural thing. If you come and show respect and come visit, I mean, it goes a long way with our customers and the customers at the Foodland, for example, is one of our regional chains. It's the only like family-owned chain in Hawaii. I mean, they allow demos, and so when some of our newer brands have come and done demos, the customers really respond to that, and they appreciate it, and they're usually customers off promo after that because they've met you, they trust you, they respect you for coming out. So I'd say if you're willing to be able to come out and grow in the market by visiting it and seeing it yourself, I mean, it goes a long way. It's a lasting impact.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely consistent with everyone that I've known who's spent time in Hawaii. They just talked about, how much respect they have for it and the importance of like giving back and being local there and, taking care of your environment and people around you. So that makes a lot of sense. I wonder maybe Allison, first, like, are there any brands that you've seen just come in and really crush it with you and they just did all that stuff the right way and they were very successful because of it?
Yeah, I think one of the suppliers or vendors that we Good Stuff and we share is Health Aid. The team we work with at Health Aid is they're on top of it. They're on top of their sales data. So they're, even if they're not in Hawaii, they're really on top of their sales reports they get from us. They're really curious about how they can support. They do a business review with us at least once a year. They come out, they hit the market, they meet the team. They always share innovation with us. We're not like the last to know about what new flavors or new varieties or offerings are coming out. So they're very active, involved, and supportive. And I mean, they've grown with us in the past year too. I mean, kombucha category has struggled, but they're continuing to grow with us.
Good for them. Ahmed, is that similar for you guys, or what are any other brands that you want to mention that have done a great job?
Yeah, I think Allison and I have the same team from Health Aid, and they do a great job. Honestly, I mean, since we've onboarded Health Aid a while back, with the team that's taking care of us now, I mean, they just have consistent ground support, especially here in NorCal. I think they have 3 reps that help out with Good Stuff, and they consistent, always on depletions, right? Checking in on current existing accounts, and then always looking for new business too. No rock is left unturned with Health Aid, and I love that approach with them. Um, we've just with their recent Sunset launch, right? They just went all out, and they really did a great job just handling the relationships between my team, managing time, and understanding the geographical territories and who the players are, who the customers are, and how they're going to approach the customer base. They just did a really good job with the launch, and hopefully that launch turns out to be really good for the brand long term.
So you mentioned having people in the market. And actually, I remember when I was there kind of kicking off with you, the brand that was coming in next had 3 people there. And I knew the brand, but I didn't know any of them. They're like, oh, yeah, we're all local. We're like, area sales managers in this region. I'm like, well, I wish I had those. That's cool. Like, how much do you really want to see that, need to see that versus, what do you want them to be doing versus what your team is doing?
No, I mean, it's not easy to do that. I mean, you have to have the funds to have a ground team and be boots on the ground and do the marketing from ground up at the retail level, creating the relationships, doing the brand development on the store, giving the retail shelf a little TLC, reaching out with my team. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort. It can be expensive, but for brands that don't necessarily have that budget, and for another brand that we found very successful, right? We just onboarded a brand called Fancy Pants, and they're out of the East Coast, and they know they can't spend a lot of time in the West Coast. They don't have a rep to support this. But what they did do is they went ahead of it, and they reached out to all the top accounts, so they knew what was going on. They gave my entire team really good placement deals and programs to have the autonomy to be in the market, to make the right decisions, and to pitch a good product. And then on top of that, you stacked on incentives for my team to really focus on the brand for a specific time period, promotional programs, and as well as, they did a ton of this free sampling program too. So they sent a pallet of sample packs that you just give off to customers to give passive demos, because they can't do those demos hands-on. So any accounts that do the demos in-house, here's all the inventory for it, just go pass it out for free. And they did a good job. They're still doing it, and we're still getting a lot of good returns and good feedback in the retail market.
Amazing. Okay, Allison, I have the same question for you, but also, I think probably there are a lot of challenges, even especially for Hawaii, because even if you do have one person there, there are a lot of different islands and who they can't get to a lot of the stuff. I also remember, with my brand, we were trying to find local demo support, like somebody local to go in and support a lot of the accounts. And oh boy, was that tough to find somebody consistent to go into, and for them to get to 2 stores is hard, because I don't know, one of them is really far away from the other one, and maybe the waves were good that day and they didn't want to go. I don't know what happened, but they would always call and cancel. So what do you like to see for local teams, and do you see it a lot?
Well, I mean, honestly, that's actually where I came from a start when I was at a startup. I mean, I came from like a brand ambassador. That's how I started out. I started out doing demos, and then once we could hit the units per store per week that Whole Foods required at the time, that was a chain, one of the local chains we had launched in. Once I was able to hit that off promo, we kind of graduated to the next account or like the next region. Took a lot of time and effort, but that was honestly the fun part of it. You know, if I asked, when is the next reset schedule? Can I come? And can I help cut in my product? Can I come cut in other people's product? Like I would just show up and show that I really cared about, you know, their time and their interest in our brand. So, I mean, that's how I started out, was like doing demos and showing my face and representing the brand. So I think, you know, if you don't have like a full team, but you really want to launch in a market, I mean, and you want to be there, I mean, there's ways to do it without having like 3 or 4 people. It goes a long way if you're able to, even if it's just yourself going. And then we've mostly with other teams, like other suppliers that we have, as speaking from now, we've seen like the teams come out. Like there's a few brands, like we launched Mellow Water this winter, and they had a team of a few people come out and do demos for a weekend. They came and met with the team, and they did demos for the weekend, and then they flew home. So, I mean, they came in, they hit it hard, and then they left. So that was effective, and it's been proven to be positive. So
yeah,
that's what I'd say.
It's one of those things that's like hard to convince your CFO of the immediate return of that with the trip and like staying places and the car and the product and everything. But I mean, I think for all the reasons we talked about before, it can make a huge difference where, okay, like the local teams see you out there making the effort, they get a connection to the product. Like it's going to matter, you know, especially over time more than in a way you could probably measure it so directly. But I don't know, for me, like honestly, I love demoing. And like I was the CEO of the company, I couldn't just be out demoing the whole time, but I actually, you know, like great, like Central Market, I would go there, demo and sell so many cans. And it was so fun for me. And, you know, it's like, it's really satisfying in a way that like, okay, just sending emails from your computer doesn't necessarily tickle the same itch, even when you're getting accounts and stuff. It's like, well, it's fun to be there and it's competitive. And, you know, you're like, I'm going to sell every single can on this shelf. Let's go. It's like very, very gratifying when you see people like, okay, yes, go and buy it. And thank you. You liked it. It's great.
And it's also helpful too to leverage that time. So if you're going to commit to a demo, you're like, hey, I need an off shelf. I need an end cap. I need a hot promo. I need an ad. So there's ways to make it work for the time you're putting in. If you just get creative and say, hey, this is what I want to do or what I need to happen. You know, can I get this? Can I have that? And just ask for a display and go and build it and then demo next to it. And usually they're happy to have the secondary display. You're like, yeah, you're going to go sell it? Sure. Have the secondary spot.
We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to announce that Startup CPG finally has an official Amazon agency partner. I know a lot of you are looking to Amazon as a great growth channel for this year and beyond, and Daybreak is the best agency that I've come across that will work with emerging brands. They have a really affordable retainer structure. It's a lot less than you'll find with other agencies that might charge you upwards of $5,000 a month, which is crazy. Based on recommendations from this community, I actually worked with Leon for my own brand and had an amazing experience. The sales grew very quickly. We started ranking really high on organic search results and really just capturing search terms in the category. I think he is an amazing fit for brands in this community, and I highly recommend reaching out to him for a chat. You can reach out to him at leon@daybreak.agency. That's LEON at Daybreak, DAYBREAK.agency. Make sure you mention us at Startup CPG so that you can get $600 of free design credits if you end up working with them. Good luck. And now back to the show. Yeah, you're totally right. And then you can just sell everything on it. But yeah, I was amazed like what you can get if you actually ask for it. Even if you're not asking the like central buyer, but even in the store, like, hey, because I'm here today and I'm actually going to be over near that secondary cooler. Like, is it okay if we just put our product in there and then people can grab it? And then next thing you know, that's just your spot. I don't know. There's a lot more you can get. Ahmed, do you see a lot of people supporting with your team with demo support and getting out into the stores?
Well, just to tack on to Allison's point, you got to think outside the box for a lot of these brands too. I mean, there's so many traditional ways to just going about it, and you can skin it in any way. Um, but thinking outside the box, leveraging, asking questions, talking to the brands, setting up those relationships. Yeah, I mean, those are great opportunities. But with demos, with brands that provide demos, when we have that, we see a lot of. I mean, the brands get their return. At the end of the day, the brands are going to sell through their product. They're going to get their return. They're going to make a good spot for themselves with the relationship with the buyers that they're working with, especially if it's a very successful one, and if the consumer feedback's been amazing, right? Like you get that type of opportunity to get your product in the consumer's mouths. Like that's what you want, and the retailers love that. Do we get a lot of it? I mean, with the local brands, yeah, we do, because the CEO or the owner of the company or their brother, family business, they want to pitch their product. They want to see its brand succeed. So we'll get a lot of support just because we work with a lot of local brands. With the larger brands that we work with, I mean, most of the vendors we work with, if they're on a larger scale, they pretty much live in LA. You know that, right? So they'll take a quick flight up, maybe for a few days. They'll do a ride along with my sales reps, or they'll schedule demos. But the most important part is, like Allison said, ahead of time, you know you're going to get those demos in. Ask for that space. Ask for anything that you think is going to be beneficial for the success of your brand. And the distributors and my reps are going to like do whatever it takes to help you out too. So
it's a good way to make sure they'll have product when you actually show up, because there's nothing worse than flying to Hawaii and getting ready to do your thing at the store and then there's product not there, right?
yeah, do your due diligence ahead of time too. That's like the most important part. Like,
yeah,
because sometimes we have, like, there's times where I'll find out they did a demo and we weren't aware a demo was going to happen. And my rep wasn't aware, so they didn't have enough inventory on the shelf. It's like, oh, you gotta communicate ahead of time. Let's get everyone on the same page. So the demo is success, and so you can actually run it.
All right. So speaking of success, and when a brand approaches you, they want to be successful. A big part of that is going to be the retail price, right? So like, I want to work with you, but the financials are a little bit different when you approach a DSD versus a broadliner. If you don't kind of look at anything and take care of them, like, easily with a DSD that's providing the enhanced service, your retail prices could shoot way up. What do you, maybe we'll start with Allison. What do you want brands to be thinking about when they're coming in and, talking to you about the structure and the financials and shelf price and and support and everything?
Well, typically, I think it's mainly about like understanding that it's an island and it costs to get product there, and it shows without even regardless of a DSD or a broadline, your price is going to be higher, and typically it's about $1 higher than California. So that's just baseline expectations. There's also ways to do some market research by just shopping online and changing the zip code and saying, oh, like, what is this price in this store? Like, what is Safeway selling it for here? So there's ways to check on like products if you're not in Hawaii and see, like, what is that selling for? Am I selling for, a premium product at $5 here in California? I'm going to be like at $6.99. That's pretty high. So how do I, what am I going to be? How do I, educate myself before I even, pitch it and be prepared for that? So low, like just baseline expectations, it's probably going to be higher. And does that fit with your goals on shelf?
And I remember, so when I worked with you guys, so I had to go do the exercise with my CFO, figuring out like, okay, here's how much here's our, normal distributor price. Here's how much it's going to cost for us to now ship it to Hawaii. Okay, it actually makes a big difference if we could ship maybe 4 pallets instead of 1 at a time, or how many could we ship? Because then that brings the cost per case of shipping it way down, figuring out all that stuff, and like, asking you what your margins were going to be and what the retailer margins were going to be, so we could kind of back into this model together. And I think, Ahmed, with you, I had a similar exercise of really just like having a lot of transparency so that I could work with you to, make sure we were doing the right kind of, rebates or, pricing, just so that it wouldn't end up with some crazy price that, was not going to work on shelves and was not going to work for the buyer.
Mhm.
Is that so, Ahmed? Is that typically what you like to see from brands, or anything else you like for them to come prepared with?
Yeah, just kind of working backwards from the price they want to see on the shelf, right? Like you got to set you're the brand, you've done the due diligence in understanding your category and what price you need it to be on the shelf and where it needs to land at, whether it's a high low kind of thing, and working backwards to making sure you're also in the green, right? And as well as the distributor and the retailer. So like Good Stuff, I have a 3-win policy when it comes to working with my brands. It's a win for the vendor, the manufacturer, the brand, win for Good Stuff, a win for the retailer. Because once we've set up all that structure, economic structure together, that foundation, we've done the right job. We found the brand, right? Now the consumer is going to get the right product at the right price. And they're going to be a happy consumer at the end of the day. And that's what I look. I really try to make sure that when we're doing the economics and the price structure, it works for everybody. And whether it's the minimums that we have to account for, or the margins that I have to account for, it all plays together. Every brand's different, so it just depends on the financial structure.
Okay, makes sense. And then I guess maybe just kind of the last question, because this was a little bit newer to me. And if you're coming in from broadliners into DSD, one thing that you'll get asked by a lot of DSDs is, do you want to provide a sales incentive to the reps? And, we think it'll be, like you were saying before, it can be pretty impactful for them, right? What do you typically see from brands in terms of incentives? And what can be like a home run for them to just really make sure that they are top of mind for people who have very busy jobs?
I guess I'll take that one just because we run incentives with my team all the time with all new brands, and every brand's different, right? The budget allocations for an incentive program is we have to be very specific, because I really don't want to just like pull a bunch of money from a brand because I'm asking incentives for my sales team. Right? I want to make it work for both of us to make sure, hey, if we have to cap it at a dollar amount, or whatever it is that you can afford, let's do it. Because if you don't have a broker that's overseeing and like working their tail off and getting accounts into Good Stuff, well, you're really focusing on my reps. If you're not in the area dedicated, you're dedicating your time to it. So um, when we run incentives, I love creativity. I love when brands are like, hey, let's do something collaborative. If they can assign a team to the area, do a sales blitz for a week and come in and really handle the area and make the relationships, get on the shelf, get the authorization, sell through, make volume deals. Because at Good Stuff, we love selling volume too, right? Like we want to make sure that we're selling pallet deals if customers can buy at pallet increments. So those are all the things that go into what we think about incentives and how it works for our team. But essentially for us, it's like your brokerage costs for a period of time, because you're utilizing our reps in a very meaningful way, and hopefully it's very impactful. If you allocate the right resources to the right people, and it works really well.
Okay, cool. Allison, I don't know if you guys even do a lot of incentives, or mainly like come down, make sure the team has some merch, like your branded hats, because I know people always love that, or anything else.
Yeah, the team loves swag. I mean, I think a lot of teams do that, especially if you have like a polo in their color, like in the company color. So I think swag's great. And as like a baseline, if you're able to do that, like that's always welcome. And then we just are really starting to build out an incentive program for us. But in general, I what I've seen work with some of the suppliers that have run incentives for a while with us and that do it well, is they're really focused on the account goals. So if it's like they're trying to hit a certain velocity, or if they're trying to hit a certain volume, they try to reflect the incentive around their goal with that specific customer or channel. So if it's like a C-store, it's like, can I get one extra facing without, or an extra flavor without taking away a current one? So trying to really be aggressive with the shelf space available, or the type of velocity the customer wants to see. I think that's what they've done well is like, hey, in this account, I want to do this kind of incentive. In this channel, I want to do this kind of incentive. And it's more tailored to a different type of account. So that's been something creative I've seen work really well because it helps our sales team get really focused on what the strategy is and being really specific.
Amazing. Well, what a cool overview this has been. Honestly, I wish I had been able to listen to this before the first time I talked to both of you. I feel like it would have saved me a lot of very basic questions that probably you get all the time. I hope that you can at least send this podcast to some people who then talk to you for the first time and that we've knocked out a lot of the early questions that they would be asking you. That's usually my goal with the podcast. So I feel like, yeah, this is a pretty good overview. Anything you feel like we didn't touch on that you would really want brands to know about DSDs or you guys in general, or feel like we got it?
I mean, for me, I just want to harp on relationship building. I mean, that's what our industry really is. I mean, like Allison said, whether it's an incentive and you're trying to leverage the spacing on the shelf, there's only so much shelf space that you can actually put product on, right? So, and we're not a UNFI, we're not a K, we're not these big conglomerate distribution companies. We have to be very specific on what we bring in. We have to curate our offering. So when we do so, we find right partners. We want to make sure we're driving into the relationship standpoint of growing business and brands by equal partnerships across the board. And when the brands realize that the relationship in the market is extremely important, and they continue to develop that in a collaborative effort, see a good amount of success. And that's what I'd love to harp on.
Amazing. Allison, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, come prepared and come with suggestions and come with a willingness to learn and adapt and, work with any distributor partner, whether it's Good Stuff or Pint Size, any DSD, come prepared with what to make any decision easy for them. So come up front with your velocities, the category information, like maybe a light customer you're currently selling in. Just help us understand what you're currently doing, what are your goals, and don't have us have to pine for the information because we really do want to help, and we really want you to reach your goals in our region. But it helps us a lot if you're able to come really prepared with the type of information we need to see from our perspective.
All right, that's great advice. Well, thank you to both of you. I am very happy to have built a relationship with both of you. Two of my favorite people always to see around the trade shows. I imagine if other people want to kind of just follow along with you guys, maybe they could give you a follow on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I expect you'll be getting a lot of follows then. And thank you guys so much. This is such a great intro into DSDs. And I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. And I'm sure we'll do another episode in the future someday, the DSD 201.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it. It was a good time.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Bye. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast today, it would really help us out if you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I am Daniel Scharff. I'm the host and founder of Startup CPG. Please feel free to reach out or add me on LinkedIn. If you're a potential sponsor that would like to appear on the podcast, please email partnerships@startupcpg.com. And reminder to all of you out there, we would love to have you join the community. You can sign up at our website, startupcpg.com, to learn about our webinars, events, and Slack channel. If you enjoyed today's music, you can check out my band. It's the Super Fantastics on Spotify Music. On behalf of the entire Startup CPG team, thank you so much for listening and your support. See you next time.